Akitchak yakinu atluk chachim sinape kwaswaish. Asking what the purpose of our health council is to advocate for our people, to manage and govern our own health. My dream is that First Nation leadership in the province stands up and says, health is our priority.
We've been guided by Western medicine, Western healing approaches, when we've always had our own healing approaches that our community members, our ancestors, and our elders have said that are just as relevant to us today.
The governments of the day have taken it upon themselves to look after us, and it has not worked. It's time we took over control of our own lives again. And so we really need to start looking at how do we create wellness for our people in a way that's sustainable and comes from our culture and who we are. Factors that contribute to our illness, so to speak, is really determined by the colonial processes and how that tore apart our families and destroyed our governance of who we are as a people.
You know, I was taken away as a child, and I remember that distinctly, and it was very traumatic for me.
Just like many other First Nations in this province, I've seen the devastating impacts of colonialism, residential schools, intergenerational trauma. So many people still dealing with things that have been passed on from generation to generation. And unfortunately, people tend to self-medicate to have that healing that they seek. And in the last number of years, we've laid to rest far too many of our members.
You know, we've lost so many young people because of the opioid crises. Not only young people, all ages, and if we don't do something, we're not going to have a younger generation leading us.
So our job is to not transmit intergenerational trauma, but to transmit intergenerational healing.
In 2005, First Nations from every region of BC came together to envision a health system by and for our Indigenous peoples. A health system with a focus on wellness rather than illness, a system grounded in culture and tradition. These leaders formed the First Nations Health Council, a group of representatives from each region whose goal was to listen to our communities and to advocate for better health outcomes, directly accountable to chiefs and leaders. Health directors from every region voted to create the First Nations Health Directors Association to plan, manage, and deliver health programs and services. And the First Nations Health Authority emerged as the first province-wide health authority of its kind in Canada, a health and wellness partner to more than 200 diverse First Nations communities across BC. Together, these were the three pillars of a new system of First Nations health governance in BC, and their goal was nothing short of transformation. Some said it was the single greatest act of self-determination in Canada for health. At the heart of this transformation are the social determinants of health, the factors that influence health outcomes for First Nations people in BC. They are the conditions in which we are born, grow up, live our lives, and grow old, how we live a good life. They are the wider set of forces and systems that shape the conditions of our daily life, our individual health and wellness. With this framework in mind, the community gathered in 2011 to outline 7 directives for First Nations health governance. To be community-driven and nation-based, to increase First Nations decision-making and control, to improve services, to foster meaningful collaboration and partnership, to develop human and economic capacity, to be without prejudice to First Nations interests, and to function at a high operational standard. In 2011, First Nations leaders across the province came together at Gathering Wisdom to sign a historic agreement, one that enshrined those values and empowered First Nations in BC to participate fully in decision-making about their health and wellness. In 2013, the official transfer of health services from Health Canada to the First Nations Health Authority began. We had arrived at a new shore, and we knew it was time to start building a new health system from the ground up.
As the new chair of the First Nations Health Council, I've seen this organization grow in the last 10 years, and I want to see it even grow more in the next 10 years.
This is 10 years in, and we have our authority established. Now we're looking to make it fit our communities. And we all know that one size doesn't fit all. I know a lot of chiefs have talked about how can we transform the system that we have now, bring more resources into the regions closer to home, because we all know that what happens in downtown Vancouver really is a lot different than what happens in northern British Columbia or even in the interior.
The climate change has had a huge impact on our people, and the disruption from the fire and floods has taken away the places where we gather our traditional foods and our medicines. We need services closer to home, like primary care. Doctors brought closer to the community with our people. Services brought closer to home so our people don't have to travel.
Well, I think the factors of health that determine how a First Nation in British Columbia does well or doesn't do well all comes down to, the key indicators of language and culture, food safety, housing, unemployment and income, clean drinking water. Without one or two of these, it really changes the longevity of their life.
So one of the things is that, partnering with other health organizations around the province to make sure that health services that we do need is administered properly within the communities.
We need to make services more available in the communities. So whether it's nurse practitioners or doctors, you got to have access to this primary care that's life-changing.
To bring back our culture into the health services is really key.
Growing up, I never realized how important culture was to me, how important culture is to healing. I'm a firm believer that culture saves lives. I was fortunate enough to have two parents that were very grounded in who they were as Musqueam people. And my mother, in fact, was one of the women in Musqueam who helped revitalize weaving wool blankets, which was a very, very important aspect of Musqueam culture for generations. Not until I was older did I realize that watching her do this, watching her use her hands just as our ancestors did, is something that has connected us, has created that bridge to overcome colonization, to help heal each other, and ensuring that we move forward not only with Western forms of healing, but First Nations forms of healing. Through culture, we can help heal not only our community members, but First Nations across the province of British Columbia.
I want to encourage our leadership to have a strong heart, strong mind. We can work together and to ensure that our members' voices are heard.
My message to Gathering Wisdom 12 is the upcoming 10-year plan. What do you want in your community? What is more important to the members in your community? It's important that we do the services that the community needs.
Gathering Wisdom 12 is an opportunity to lay a different direction from where we're going. And so what's important is the chiefs and leadership, the council members, the health directors need to make a decision on where we're going to go and lay a foundation for change. And also our partners, provincial and federally, we have to ask them the same questions. What are they going to contribute to make a difference on the ground? It's because they have processes that they're in control of, they can actually change. And they can contribute to the solution, because part of the issue, they've been a problem for many years because of the systemic nature of racism, systemic nature of genocide. And so I think that they can come to the table as actual equal and full partners and create a solution with us.
But the most important part is us being in charge of our health.
We know how to look after ourselves. They've been disrupted so much, we need to find ways to bring that back. They're not lost, they're there. I keep saying it's for the children that we do this work, for the children, and I think that's what's important in the process.
Your attendance, your words, your support is so important, and I really look to see all of you at Gathering Wisdom.
I'm excited to welcome each and every one of you to Gathering Wisdom 12, and I hope that we can move forward united with a 10-year strategy when it comes to the health and wellness of all First Nations in British Columbia.